This is a WMUR Commitment 2020 special in partnership with the New Hampshire Institute of Politics. Conversation with the candidate. Tonight, Representative Tulsi Gabbard.
Good evening and welcome to our Conversation with the Candidate series. I'm Adam Sexton and our guest this evening is Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii. Tonight we'll be getting to know Representative Gabbard and where she stands on key issues. At the start of our show, I'll be asking the candidates some questions, and then after a break, we'll have our studio audience ask their questions in a town hall format. But before we begin with that, let's take a quick look at the candidate's biography.
Tulsi Gabbard was born in Leiloaloa, American Samoa in 1981. When she was 2, her family moved to Hawaii. As a teenager, she co-founded a nonprofit focused on educating youngsters about protecting the environment. When she was 21, Gabbard was elected to the state legislature, the youngest person ever elected in the state. She then joined the Hawaii Army National Guard and in 2004 volunteered to deploy, serving 2 tours in the Middle East. In between those stints overseas, Gabbard was a legislative aide to U.S. Senator Daniel Akaka. She was later elected to the Honolulu City Council, then in 2012 to the U.S. House of Representatives from Hawaii's 2nd District. She has been re-elected 3 times. Representative Gabbard serves on the House Armed Services Committee as well as the House Financial Services Committee. She is a graduate of Hawaii Pacific University and is married to Abraham Williams.
Congresswoman Gabbard, thank you so much for joining us on Conversation with the Candidate.
Great to be back here. Thank you.
We appreciate your time. So as we heard, you've accomplished a lot in a short amount of time. The service is admirable, and in fact, you're going to be leaving the campaign trail here to continue serving in the near future. But you're only over that constitutional age threshold by a few years for the office of the presidency. So what do you say to those people who say, gosh, maybe we need someone with more life experience?
I would say look at the experience that I have. You know, I've had the opportunity to serve the people of Hawaii at every level of government, serving as a state representative, later as a member of our Honolulu City Council, which is one of the largest city councils in the country. My district alone represented about 100,000 people, and then now serving in Congress for nearly 7 years, really focused on national security, serving, as you mentioned, on the House Foreign Affairs, the Armed Services, the Homeland Securities committees. Those experiences combined with the experience that I bring as a soldier, the experience that I've had deploying twice to the Middle East, understanding truly the cost of war, the consequences, and who pays the price, give me that background and frankly that conviction necessary to walk into the Oval Office on day one prepared to fulfill that responsibility of Commander-in-Chief.
So some people feel that this Democratic primary is taking the Democrats too far to the left. But there's an undeniable energy right now around members of Congress and others who identify openly as Democratic socialists. Is that the future of the party?
I don't know, but I think the future of the party and the future of the country, instead of being focused on which label or which subsection of the party you belong to or identify with, instead let's just focus on serving the people. Let's focus on dealing with the challenges that families across this country are struggling with and work together to find solutions. So if that means you're working together with people who have different ideologies within our own party or reaching across the aisle and working with Republicans, we've got to stay more focused on how we can deliver results, how we can solve these perpetual challenges that really we've been debating in far too many elections in this country.
It's clear you're going to go your own way when you want to do it, and you're going to do what you believe is right.
Yes.
As you've seen this bounce here from the last couple of debates, we've seen other candidates attack you over your 2017 meeting with Bashar al-Assad in Syria, who the U.S. identifies as a war criminal. Do you have any regrets now over that meeting, facing the questions that you're facing? I know that you say you don't want America to be the world's policeman, and you're going to meet with people in furtherance of peace, but the political cost that you're paying right now, do you regret that meeting?
I don't care about the political cost. What I care about is doing what's best for our country. And if it means meeting with a dictator or 100 dictators in order to prevent the unnecessary loss of life of even one of my brothers and sisters in uniform, I'll do what's necessary because I know the reality, which is the only alternative to diplomacy is war. And for too long, we've had leaders who have lacked the courage to meet with those, whether they be adversaries or dictators, in the interests of our national security, keeping the American people safe, and in the interests of peace. So this is the kind of leadership that I seek to bring. This is the kind of leadership that we need, especially at this time where we're seeing increasing tensions between the United States and nuclear-armed countries like Russia and China that are pushing us closer and closer to the brink of nuclear catastrophe. We don't need leaders who are going to pretend to act tough without thinking about the consequences of their actions and how it's making the American people less safe. The kind of foreign policy leadership that I'll bring is one that's focused on cooperation rather than conflict, stopping being the world's police, ending these wasteful regime change wars, and de-escalating these tensions so that we can work towards a future that is peaceful and prosperous.
Does a president have to draw a line, though, at some point and say, I'm not going to meet with this person who is not bringing peace to their own people, the opposite, bloodshed?
I don't think so. I don't think that's in the interest of peace, because when there are tensions or there is war or potential for conflict, you don't avoid that war, you don't prevent that war just by hanging out with your friends or talking to your allies. That's literally the objective of diplomacy, is to meet with those leaders who you disagree with, to try to prevent or bring about an end to war and conflict. And I look back to leaders like JFK, who met with Khrushchev. Look to Reagan and what he accomplished in meeting with and working with Gorbachev in passing that historic INF treaty that unfortunately this president has just torn up and walked away from, sparking off a new nuclear arms race. There are many different examples of leaders in our country's history who have put the interests of the American people first without regard to whether or not that decision is politically popular or not. That's the kind of leadership that inspires me, and that's the kind of context. That's the way that I'll make my decisions, putting country and our people first.
All right, Congresswoman Gabbard, thank you for answering these questions here.
Of course,
the
great
town
to be
hall
here.
awaits. Coming up after the break, we'll bring our studio audience into this conversation. Stay with us.